This is Lindsay McLeod Garcia. I'm posting another video geared towards teenagers and how to be prepared for an earthquake that happens, what to do in the community to help be prepared, and what to have gathered at your home. Go ahead and take the test that's in the link of the description box before watching the videos, and take it at the end to see how much you've learned. The objectives for this are for the student, the teenager, to be able to describe what to do in the event of an emergency like an earthquake and what systems are in the community to help with preparedness. So what is an earthquake? A lot of people know, they've taken science classes. So it's when shaking occurs from the shifting of plates in the Earth's surface or underneath the Earth's surface. It can cause things like tsunamis, flash floods, fires, buildings and bridges to fall, loss of power, and phone services. To be measured on the Richter scale, it has to be at least a 4.3 in magnitude. Most earthquakes happen west of the Rocky Mountains, but those in the central states tend to have more damage. Earthquake planning is important so that you can be prepared if something happens. Teenagers are often an important part of this planning process because they're more likely to encourage their parents to get disaster and emergency supplies together and educate their parents on what needs to be done. Being prepared helps lower the amount of stress that happens in a real disaster. And it's important to know where your emergency kits are, the communication when something happens, meetup information, and local community resources. Earthquakes often happen, you might not all be together, so knowing what to do if, let's say, your parents are at work and the teenagers at school, and those kinds of things, like what is the plan if there was something major that was to happen. Prior to an earthquake, it's important to look at your house and see what safety risks that there are, making sure that bookshelves, appliances, anything that could fall over is secured, because there is a lot of movement that can happen, and then the risk and dangers from falling things is pretty great. It's important to know how to turn off the water in your house, the electricity, and if you have gas, where that is to turn off for safety. Having emergency supplies is important. It's also good to learn CPR and first aid prior to anything happening. You never know if you're going to need it. Even for yourself, if you have to do first aid on yourself, it's good to have a knowledge base for that. At your house, you should have 3 days of emergency supplies. These include any food for the amount of people that are going to need it, medications, clothing, hygiene supplies, water, disinfecting materials, safety masks, especially if there's a lot of debris, or currently now with the COVID stuff, a flashlight, a battery operated radio. There should be a to-go bag that is packed in your vehicles with similar items in case you aren't able to get to your house, you have that stuff in your car. And it's also important to have documents ready that you would need for identification: birth certificate, social security cards, ID, medical insurance information, home insurance information. Even things like some cash might be appropriate to have in there, but to have all the things that you would need for about 2 weeks worth of time to help in case there was something that you couldn't get home or power was out for a very long time. A first aid kit is always important to have. You can buy one at the store, or you can make one on your own. If you're going to make your own, it should have over-the-counter medications, Tylenol, ibuprofen, any kind of antibiotic ointment or spray, band-aids, dressing, splinting material, ice packs, slings, in case somebody has a broken arm or something like that. So it's important to have those all prepared and handy in case something is to happen. So what do you do during an earthquake? It's important that you drop down, you cover your head, and hold on until the shaking stops. If you can find a table or a desk to get under, that's good. It'll help keep your head protected. If you can't find one of those, you go and crouch down close to an interior wall. There's more of a weight-bearing structure to that, so it will stay up better. And then you wait for the shaking to stop before you move, and be aware that in all of that there might be some shifting of furniture, things might have fallen, so you have to be mindful when walking around. Earthquake drills are important to practice before there is an earthquake. It's important for everyone in the family to participate, and it should be practiced frequently. Then if something was to happen, it doesn't seem as stressful, it's organized, everyone knows what to do. There needs to be 2 exits from each area of the house that are identified as an exit. If you have a 2-story house, you can get a rope ladder that you can keep someplace that's kind of central so that everyone knows where it's at and they can get out of the windows. It's also important to know where you're going to meet up outside that is safe from falling objects, trees, power lines, all of that, and make sure that everybody knows where emergency supplies are located in the house, in the garage, and where they can be accessed. It's important to keep in mind that communication during a disaster might be down. Phone lines might not be working, including cell phones. So texting is more likely to go through if the lines are down. So use that as your form of communication with others. Also, make sure there's a person out of state that everyone knows to call as a link-up person. If possible, not everyone knows someone out of state, but if possible, have somebody that is there, because they're not going to be experiencing the same disaster issues that you are. And also important to have program numbers into your cell phone, including the local Red Cross and the local hospital, in case you need to contact them to try to get in touch with your family. Driving into disaster has its own troubles and safety needs. It's important to always wear your seatbelt. If there is water on the roadway, 6 inches or more can throw your car off, and 2 feet of water can actually wash your car away. So it's very important when going through water. You don't know what's underneath it, and it can be very dangerous. It's also important to drive slowly and give space between other vehicles if they're on the road. Traffic lights might not be working, so to follow the rules and treat it like it's a 4-way stop with a stop sign. Be aware that emergency responses will be busy and they will not be able to enforce traffic safety. And it's important to watch for debris in the road that can impede you going someplace and put you at risk for injury and increase your danger. When the earthquake is over, if you're at your house, it's important to assess the damage as you leave and head towards the location where you have agreed to meet with your family. Again, text to communicate. Power lines and phone lines will be down, so you'll more than likely be able to get a text through versus anything else. And it's also important to utilize any emergency services if available. The local Red Cross will be available, hospitals, emergency response teams. So it's really important to be aware of what those are and how to access them and get in contact with them.